So we're going to get kicked off here. I'm Chris Schooler with Denver Parks and Recreation. I'm the project manager for this project. Norris Design here is going to be our presenters. Anybody else we need to say hello? Council member Joanne Clark's here with us tonight. Thanks for coming. That's about it at this point.
And thank you, Mac, for hosting. Please, thank you again.
Yeah, welcome.
Appreciate it. Chris, any other ads?
No, that's all we need to say so far. I think we can go ahead and get into
All right.
the presentation.
Perfect.
So why don't we talk a little bit about the format, how we're going to work tonight?
Yep, absolutely. We'll do a little overview of that. As Chris mentioned, Chris is the project manager with Denver Parks and Rec. So thanks to the Denver Parks and Recreation team for hosting this meeting, and for Mac and the Hirschfield Towers for hosting us. This has been a really convenient place for us to meet. Jesus is here too with DPR, and please go ahead and do. Yeah, Kira Chavez is helping in the communications part with Denver Parks and Rec. So thanks for being here. Once again, I'm Stacy Weeks with Norris Design, and with me is Patrick O'Keefe over here. He's going to be answering Q&A online. So if you have questions, please pass that along to him. Brian Rogers is tracking us on the video. So we'll be putting this together as an edit to put online and share with your neighbors and friends. We have a lot to share tonight. And then Rachel Nicolaison's helping us too with Norris Design. She's going to help facilitate a little session in a bit. So we've had this is our second neighborhood meeting. We've had a couple of stakeholder meetings as well, and we continue to gather input from the community through email and other contacts. So it's been a great opportunity to get information over the past couple of months. We formally kicked off for the folks that are new to these meetings. We kicked this off in December, and we're going to share a little bit of background information. We'll hit it high level. You can go back to the previous video to see a little bit more detail, but we really want to focus on where we're going right now. We have a big idea in some territories, some concepts that we're exploring, which drove concept plans that we want to walk through, give you a snapshot of what those are, what they're about, what's included in them. And it gives us an opportunity to talk about the programming and basically the options, kind of what we call the trade-offs. You look at one element, it may mean that we have to reduce another element. So we have boards in the back, and we're going to go, after we go through the presentation, we're going to break out into more of an open house format and let you put dots on some of the elements that jump out as preferences, and just provide input with post-it notes on elements that really evoke some excitement about what the opportunities are in the park, and maybe comments or suggestions on things that we have opportunities to explore further. So that's where we are today. We'll give you a big overview here, and then we'll have a little smaller session. For the folks online, we're going to be able to facilitate this. Patrick's going to do a virtual session with this so we can get some input from you. We can mark up the exhibits on Bluebeam and just kind of work that way with you. So not that everyone knows what Bluebeam is, but anyways, it's a way of. Yeah. So thanks again for the folks joining online. I know it's kind of an interesting day out there, and the Nuggets start in some point here shortly too. So we might come in second, I guess, against the Nuggets. But anyways, and then for the folks online, you're able to add, as I mentioned, through the Q&A function, you're able to give Patrick some questions. And when we get to it, we're going to have a little Q&A before we break. I forgot to insert that into the conversation, but please send those, raise your hand. We can connect you so you can talk and verbalize your questions. All right. We'll kick it off. I'm going to do a fast, rapid session because we got a lot of slides that set background, and then we'll get into the real good stuff here in a minute. But Councilmember Clark's on here. We do have a new council member that will be taking his seat shortly. So it sounds like that was determined yesterday. So Flor Alvarides will be a future council member for Lucky District 7. And you all know where we are. So you found us here, so you know where Dailey Park is. That's a good thing. So one of the things that we did going through the process is just evaluating where we are, what the needs are. This is a bond project, so there's a specific program for this, for the improvements to the park. But while we're looking at those, we need to consider what the influences are so we can maximize the value of the funds that are available for the improvements here. So many as you know, we're the yellow rectangle in the center of the site here in the Baker neighborhood. And really, this is your access to the great outdoors. This is the park in the neighborhood. But there's other parks in the area, and they are probably more likely destinations that you drive, maybe bike to, or access. The other influences we have, you are seeing some additional multifamily housing growing south of the neighborhood here. So you got new neighbors that are coming in, and it's going to add more friends to the neighborhood, more kids, and probably some more four-legged friends too. So it's important just to realize the context of where the evolution of the Baker neighborhood has gone. Part of what we have seen is the demographic in the neighborhood. There's a lot more family generation happening within the Baker neighborhood. I'm sure you see that. We have some small ones here with us today, but that's added richness to the neighborhood. And then just in general, the Denver parks in the area do help support other amenities. So, some of the things that from going to some of the different levels of park, we have the more of a pocket park that you see just north of us to an athletic complex at Valverde Park. So the scales of parks within the general service area for the Baker neighborhood is diverse and adds a lot of opportunities in terms of serving the recreational needs of residents. For Dailey Park is a neighborhood park. So that classification makes it more of a walkable, the convenient access to play, turf, and gathering spaces. So that's really the emphasis, the essence of a neighborhood park for Baker neighborhood and many of the neighborhoods in Denver. You can see other examples of what are considered neighborhood park. Sunken Garden, which is north of us. Many of you would be familiar with that. Spring Park. So similar parks that serve the local neighborhoods. Other influences are the access to the park for the greater neighborhood. Both we have a bus route that goes by here. You have seen steady improvements since we started this process with the bike lane improvements that are occurring and in the road diet that's occurring out there to help improve the access to the park and access generally as a bike route and improve those multimodal opportunities for the community. And then you also have Alameda Station down south. So the connection to the RTD is a very nice added aspect for the Baker neighborhood. One of the things that we heard in the beginning, because we have some barriers, natural, handmade barriers, some natural, but we have the Platte, we also have I-25, we have Santa Fe, all kind of becoming this western edge to the Baker neighborhood. Alameda is starting to see some improvements that will provide probably better bike circulation, but it's still pretty significant crossing to go across that area from a bike. So we do recognize that a lot of the parks that we hear are more parks that you would drive to. So as we look at the neighborhood, really this neighborhood, kind of the context of what it serves is more of that eastern part of the neighborhood going into Broadway and Lincoln and the residents in this area. Part of what we set up here is this half-mile radius. So half-mile radius generally means about 10-minute walk. So just thinking about how people have access to Dailey Park as a walkable destination. So that's a metric that we use in a lot of park planning to understand what's the reach of a neighborhood park. So some of you may have been involved. I know a handful of people have been, but in 2009, there was a master plan done for Dailey Park. This took a fresh look at the park, understanding through community input what was at that time were the community needs for the park and desires for the potential improvements over time. So some of the things that came out of that was the importance of the flexible lawn, the opportunity to improve the playground area, gathering spots, looking at the multi-use basketball sport court area, and looked at alternative program for the park. So what the 09 master plan did for the neighborhood is make this park priority in terms of setting up priority improvements that now have funding through the bond program. So we'll touch on the program in a minute, but that's what has enabled this project to allocate funding. So the master plan helped drive that component. As you know the park, so I probably don't need to walk through it too much, but we do have the convenient connection and huge vast resource of Lafayette Recreation Center. That is a great asset for the neighborhood and really a strong synergy between the park and programs that go inside and outdoors at the park. We also, the playground well, the current basketball court, the walking path. So all these are core elements of the park and pieces that we are evaluating at this time. As we look at the park, there's opportunities and constraints. We've heard from the community about the traffic on Cherokee, some of the adjacent influences of parking on the edge. And then when you come into the interior, we have what are highlighted here, some of the picnic areas, seating opportunities. We also have some amazing trees in the park. So what an asset to have a park that has such an amazing canopy and structure to it, but it's also a bit of a constraint we'll touch on later in terms of how we can do improvements and where some limits lie. One of the things I just want to recognize too is the connection to Hirschfeld Towers. This becomes a huge amenity for the residents here, being able to walk out and have the park space there, gathering spots. We see outside of today, we see a lot of people gathering out across the street. So important space for the neighborhood, for the residents here too. So the playground is dated, no question, and it's time for a freshening up and maybe a new opportunity to look at what it could be. So as we went through the process, we shared some images of recent park improvements across the Denver Metro through the Denver Park system, of improvements to Russell Square, Cuatro Vientos Park, McWilliams, just different scales, different opportunities for what a new playground could look like, feel like. So this just helped everyone visualize the opportunity ahead of us. Part of what our process was too is getting that direct input from the residents, which hopefully I'd be curious, how many people completed the questionnaire that went out? Awesome. That's great. So this really, we had 185 responses, really good info to help us understand the daily use here, the time of use. It's an afternoon and evening destination. It's used around the clock, but it helped us understand how people are coming together and gathering. We had a lot of good input, just written input on the importance of hosting events and celebrations here. It also helped validate the importance of how people use the park in terms of walking, using the playground, walking the dog, the sports, picnicking, and just enjoying the open turf. So help validate some of the things that we had been hearing, but that's great data to understand. And then part of what we also asked were, just what are the most important improvements that would make an impact to the neighbors? And so, as you can see here, the playground improvements, picnic improvements, and looking at how we reduce the water use in the park through reevaluating turf. Not necessarily getting rid of the great lawn, but just where we can be more smart with our water use. And that's a goal of Denver Parks and Rec too. So helpful information to go. And we have collected lots and lots of data. This is just highlights of things that we've heard from the community. it's been awesome to hear how people use the park. We also have a little bit of a turf battle, literally, on how the lawn's used from leashed to unleashed dogs and kids playing. So we recognize that's something that is happening and something that has evolved more so over the COVID era too. So this led to some investigation on what opportunities are there and what current updates are happening in the dog realm. There's some projects that are in potential pipeline or potential project with Sunken Garden to look at a dog run area up there. Also west of here at Fairmount. Yeah, thank you. And then even the consideration of trying to evaluate, is there a spot here in the future that might meet some of the criteria for a smaller dog? So it opened up a dialogue and helped inform us on what people are thinking and what new needs have evolved too. So project scope, this sets our foundation. This is the baseline for where we are today. The core improvements that the bond allocated funds for is a playground renovation, the basketball multi-sport court replacement, improving the walks that have potential ADA issues, or where you see where the panels have risen due to some of the root infiltration underneath, and then looking at the connections, making sure we have the appropriate connections to different amenities within the park. Any of the improvements that we do will have some irrigation upgrades, and we do plan to do an assessment once the water starts going again to look at how the performance of the core irrigation system is. That's one of the elements that we're working through. And then seeing where we can do pollinator gardens within this as well when we do some turf replacement areas. And then one other kind of parallel track is we do know that those older existing restroom structures are not ideal probably in the context of visibility in the park, and it provides some challenges. So we're looking at maybe potential options for those, but that's not within our current budget, but at least are recognizing that's something for further investigation. So we have a budget to go through design that pays for the design fees and also project contingencies, which are typically what happened in a project. Yes, sir. Oh, yes, correct. So these are from the Denver Go bond, the 2021 RISE bond. They were from the master plan helped rise some priority improvements for the park. And then as the city goes through the process of identifying projects throughout the various districts, there's projects that get put into the bond program and get selected. So this was one of the ones that was part of that vote to be part of the funding that gets allocated to the park. Yes, ma'am.
And how much money was is it total?
It's approximately 1.4 million with all the design fees and everything in one spot. So, and Chris, anything to add?
No,
Okay.
I'll actually just repeat what they asked.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So the two questions were, where did the money come from? And what was the budget? All right, so now getting into where we are today, we went through a process of evaluating the existing conditions and starting to look at programming. So we have basically, I would say, 3 objectives that were driving us. One is to understand what the program is, which the bond and the list of projects are our main program, but what else can we accomplish with the budget that we have? Second is, with that program, what is the preferred locations for those amenities? And I'm sorry, am I blocking?
Oh, no, you're fine.
Okay. What are the preferred locations for the different amenities, the different improvements? And then third, what is the big idea? What is Dailey Park going to feel like, look like? What's that character? What's going to be the essence of it? So that brings together where we are going now. And as you look at this, and when we talk later, there generally are trade-offs. We'll have there's different scenarios for elements. So we go a certain direction, we may have to look at, maybe not being able to go with as big of a playground area because we're maybe providing shade. So those are things that we were evaluating. Sorry. But our existing trees are amazing. And what we work with is called tree. We look at the tree preservation of all these, which is working with the Office of Forestry. But we have basically the canopy and then what we call the tree protection zone, which is what is in the hatched area here. And so the hatched area is basically for every inch of diameter of a tree, you have 1 foot of protection area that we look at. So there's some limitations to what we can do in there and some design criteria that we have to integrate into our construction if we're in those areas. So we work with the Office of Forestry. It's a fun exchange, and we create solutions.
Sorry, did they tell you that they just planted 2 trees in the playground area?
They planted more than 2 trees.
Yeah.
Yes. We have about 12 trees that we walked out a month ago, and Patrick and I looked at each other and we're like, where'd those come from? So fortunate part, small trees, easier to move. Yeah. But yes, that was a nice surprise. So thank you for planting trees. It's a good thing on following Earth Day, right? Yeah. But it was early. So anyways, we went through 3 programming studies just to analyze the core elements that are in it, and then opportunities, because one of the things that we want to think about is, we have the opportunity of some core elements, but how do you seed that money across the park to really help invest in all the context of the entire Dailey Park area? So our first study basically looked at, all right, today we have the playground here. If we do need a bigger playground, there needs to be more elements in that playground. So we studied using the existing playground and then expanding into the lawn, and then retaining the current sports courts where we are, and then looking at the north for how do we improve the garden that's just south of south of us here. That looks like it was supposed to have tables and some benches, but it doesn't. So it was one of the pieces I think would really help with creating a nice reading garden, a space for us all, for people to gather. Our other avenue we went was we heard from the community that Cherokee definitely has a lot of traffic. There's concerns about younger kids playing closer to Cherokee. So what if we look at moving the playgrounds inward to the park, closer along the Archer area, and moving the sport court and looking at a more of a half court, multi-court location. So they could also be a little community gathering space and serve multiple uses, but bringing the play area here, helping improve the arrival sequence into from Cherokee and Archer, and then seeding some additional picnic areas to the north. So we start to bring people further into the park and give other seating and gathering opportunities. And then the third concept took a similar approach to the previous one, but it looked at continuing to expand that sport court here, more of a full-size court, bringing the playground centrally and also going into the northern area there of the flex lawn to expand the play area, grow kind of a gathering node here for the community. Once again, looking at expanding picnic areas to the north and looking at the La Familia connection to really enhance that connection there. One of the things that we've gathered from Christine, thank you for being here, is that they host outdoor programs, and so they bring the kids over there, and they need a little staging area really to help make that convenient for the kiddos to get ready for the different activities. So we gathered all the input, which was great. We had some feedback on this, and one of the things that it drove us to was it basically nudged us. I'll use a better term for that, but nudged us into exploring the park in a little bit of a different way. One of the things that we heard was the full basketball court really served a value, so it expanded the multi-court space for the kids and also the recreation center users that when it's programmed and there isn't availability, that they have an outdoor space to go to. So the thought was keeping that expanded basketball court, but bringing it closer to Cherokee, expanding the play area, making really the southern area of the park kind of this activity area. Really looking at how important the connectivity through the neighborhood is to bring you to La Familia and enhancing that circulation there and the prominence of the arrival sequence. This is a really unique space anyways up here with the forest. So, but bringing a potential picnic space and gathering space in there. So with that, we also had some images and we'll share more of these later, but there was a lot of interest in how connecting with nature is really important for the residents here and for the users at Dailey Park. And so this gave us a moment to reflect what the input that we've heard over the past couple of meetings and establish a direction. And so what is the inspiration, the big idea? It's really about nature in the city. This is the opportunity. This is our opportunity for everyone to have the place where you get out, you connect with nature, you have what we heard, you're more surrounded by this urban environment, which is, steadily more urban. And this is the getaway spot. So how do you capture that and make it really that space where you get away? So with laughter floating through the air, the smell of burgers and soft grass begging for bare feet, the senses are delighted at Dailey Park. Release your inner child to explore swings that soar to new heights, creative pathways that encourage you to dream and discover, and spontaneous adventures and gatherings, all within Dailey Park. As we reimagine what's possible, the fresh feeling of nature will fit effortlessly into the Baker neighborhood. Whether enjoying a picnic at the park, shooting hoops with new friends, or spotting silhouettes in the clouds, Dailey Park has something for everyone, both 2- and 4-legged friends alike. So this really helped capture and help drive the ideas that we're going to share going forward. So we wanted to explore 2 territories with you, and then we'll get input. But it really helped us recognize the importance of the park in the context of the city. And then, a couple of things just observationally, when you walk on the Cherokee side, you have this great panoramic view of the mountains, and that's such a huge vista to have when you're in the city, just to have that vista that connects you to our foothills. So it's a special connection there. So the first territory is the Enchanted Forest. Maybe a little inspiration from the trees that are here in the canopy that we have, but a spot that will be captivating, playful, whimsical. The concept sparks imagination and enchantment throughout Dailey Park, allowing the space to feel like a playful oasis that invites everyone's inner child out to play. So this concept looks at, and I'm going to jump to the next slide, but this concept looks at creating these special spaces within the park. We faded this back to help make it easier for everyone to see really the focused areas of improvement. So starting at the southern area from Cherokee and Archer, what we've proposed is creating that arrival space, and you have the full, okay, louder in, not in your, oh, okay, all right, perfect. We'll keep it as loud as possible. All right. So we start with the basketball court, and there it goes. Full-size basketball court that anchors the Cherokee in Archer corner, with some grading around here to try to help redirect that basketball and bounce it back into the court. It benefits from that existing tree in that area. This replaces the playground area that's there. As we move forward, you start to experience the Enchanted Forest through the Kingdom. The Kingdom is the larger children's play area that's anchored by a larger structure and a multiple climbing and walking elements and climbing features. and it takes you across the river across the troll bridge into the ferry cottage area. That would be the small kids play area here. And this gives you a little spot for the kiddos to play, and it really helps start drawing you in through the park and helps set up the arrival sequence to connect with La Familia, set up some better seating in that zone, and just enhance that overall connection and experience on the southwest corner here. As you go north into the current garden that's up here, expanding that garden, add some seating, some trees, really enhance that space and make it a real nice gathering spot for the community. There's a nice framework that's there. It doesn't take much to enhance that, but bringing some boulders and some seating in there will create this little enchanted garden here. And then, as you can see up here, starting to play in the forest over in the corner, bringing some boulders in there, some flexible seating nodes, opportunities there, activates the northwest corner as well. We're also looking at where you can do some turf reduction. This also provides an opportunity potentially for a future dog run area at some point in the future, but it's a great spot that would accommodate that space, and bringing that enhancement down here to try to reduce water use and enhance the northeast corner with an arrival sequence with enhanced landscape. Coming back to the center area, this would be a larger seating area with multiple tables, picnic tables and seating to help give that little central gathering spot on the south end of the park. So a couple of elements there to really enhance the overall park experience improvements. And I'll reiterate for everyone that's in person, we're going to share these at the end. We have boards so you can look at them in more detail and put dots on them. And then online, Patrick will be able to flip through them and get input as we flip through them. So we'll flip through these, but we will have an opportunity to go back to them. But this gives you a snapshot of what the enchanted forest could feel like, the forms, the type of playground elements that could be in there, creating the forest tower and the castle fortress. So those are options. We wouldn't be able to do all these, but it gives you an idea of some of the character that could come into this to really capture the overall enchanted forest. Bringing in nature play opportunities, bringing logs. Chris has done a great job of coming up with a great opportunity to reuse larger timber around Denver to add it into the parks, create that nature play experience that allows kids to climb, walk, run over, jump over. The little things that we can do with steppers, and then once again, creating that in a bridge experience. With that sport court, the sport court gives you an opportunity for a canvas. Chris is actually working on something like this right now too, which is awesome. And then the idea of enhancing that garden with the outlay, just to reinforce that canopy in the heart of Dailey Park, and then picnic and seating opportunities. So this is one territory that we're exploring, and then we have another territory that we're presenting tonight, which is Foothills to Sky. This is the adventurous, limitless, exciting. The playful elements of this concept allow for infinite opportunities. Feel the expanse of the open sky and connections to nature, friends, and strangers alike. So this is the overall context again of the Foothills to Sky, and we'll go into where we can blow up to the areas that have opportunities for improvements. Once again, we'll start with the southeast corner of Cherokee of Archer, just kind of follow our path through the park. So we have a similar experience. But in this concept, we start with that arrival sequence. This one explores a smaller multi-court space. You can see it has a half court set up. We have a little free throw shot, and with all the sport court and multi-court, bringing in hopscotch, foursquare into these so that we activate it. It's not just basketball. It could be a track where you could ride your bike. So we have opportunities to use paint to enhance and create multiple experience in this courts. With this one, we look at the play area being kind of centrally located here. So the larger play is closer to Archer. This would and create some climbing features, boulder features, at least some type of tower to get that elevated look so we can take advantage of the mountain vista. And it sets up a nice framework for the core area. So just kind of going back to location. Basketball court used to be here, playground here, we're flip-flopping. So we're using kind of existing territory for these improvements. And then moving the smaller kids play closer to the turf. So we have the opportunity to roll in and out, but it also create an opportunity to create a berm, which is a fun feature to create a play and just create a little bit also at the same time a barrier between the flexible lawn and the play and create kind of a clear delineation between these spaces. This concept explores the idea of having a shade element being the central gathering spot. So as I mentioned, trade-offs, this one shows a much smaller gathering space with kind of a central shaded element that helps parlay the shade opportunities with the tree, where the other one had a little bit more open gathering space with outdoor seating. We do add a connection here in making the opportunity for additional seating so you can host multiple gatherings in the area. And then as you trail westward, looking for the opportunities to reduce turf and irrigation use, trying to bring native in there and a strolling path that really kind of evokes that experience of moving through, walking towards the foothills into the forest. And then landing at the corner of La Familia there with opportunities for enhancing that corner treatment. As we go north around the park, looking at the island areas, both sides, how to improve those arrival sequences by reducing turf, enhancing landscape, and more native landscape in those areas, which could be both pollinator and seed, and then bringing the picnic areas in on the north side of the forest and along here on Ellsworth, improving some circulation with an additional picnic area to a support for the current one here and more subtle seating improvements for the north garden area. This would be bringing in seating and some boulders, but maybe not as robust as what the Enchanted Forest program is. So once again, you can see a blow up. We'll have these up on the boards, but the blow up of the core play area and really the active zone in the park beyond the flexible lawn space. So helping to visualize what character could be, this one plays off a little bit more of the verticality of climbing and exploratory play, a little bit of risk. That's always good, right? In the play and climbing features. So the rope features are always exciting for the kiddos, and who doesn't love a slide and a swim? Once again, the opportunity to pull the natural boulder play in there and playing with the topography where we can, even exploring the idea of rock tunnel, climber over, those cool little features that you can subtly bring in here and just create different experiences within the park area. And once again, like the foothills really kind of leans on building on the strong views that are on the south side of the park too. The other kind of fun territory in this is with the native area, the idea of bringing some bird houses in, that art and connection, butterfly garden, bird habitat. So fun way to really connect to nature in the city. And then the idea of shade and different treatments for the path. And we've had a conversation where we're putting this in at a project, hopefully in the next couple of months, but glow in the dark aggregate. So the foothills to sky, maybe being able to see some of the twinkle in the ground plane at night to connect us to our sky and the stars up above. So those are generally the territories that we're exploring right now. Our next step here, we would love to do a little Q&A. And then we're going to break and get together at the boards. We have some dots that we'll hand out to give everyone a chance to just kind of express what's getting you excited about the opportunities here, and Post-it notes to provide comments, input, thoughts. We want to hear it. This is the opportunity to really kind of identify what is working in terms of what makes this park a unique place for the residents in Four Baker neighborhood in Dailey Park. And that's our goal is then to take these and evolve into a preferred concept that we would then come back at some point in the summer and have a chance to share what that direction is and be able to, hopefully, if the weather would do it, we could actually maybe meet outside and talk about space in the space, which would be awesome. So that's our next step in the process. But tonight, we'll open up for Q&A. We'll go back and forth between hybrid and in person. So we'll do a couple in person, couple hybrid. Chris, anything to add before we jump into that?
Yeah, thanks, Stacy. I just want to point out that this is not an exercise in picking either or. We want to hear from the components of each plan that you like most, and then the goal will be to integrate those into a single preferred concept. So,
Yeah, I appreciate that. That is very important. Yeah, we definitely want to hear if there's a direction that kind of gets everyone excited. But yes, the amenities are flexible, and we want to make sure that we're capturing what will make this park truly special for everyone. So I'll open up to questions. Anyone have questions in person? Yes.
I noticed before you did the more detailed plans, you showed, connection improvements in the two corners, not at the Cherokee and Archer corner. But then as you were doing the detailed ones, it seemed like you did talk about improving that corner. So what right now are you thinking, like 3 of the 4 corners would get improvements, only 2? Which 2?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So I'll try to do a better job. So the question is about, we showed the red line that showed about the connection between the park. And what we found is that as we were looking at the park and the sequence of how this park creates a great connection across the neighborhood, we will already have kind of this new improvement on the southeast corner. So that's going to have this new arrival experience. But what we discovered is that this connection through the park is really important. We're touching a lot of it, and we want to make sure that it feels like there's a consistency and a connection that links it all together. And with that said, we also don't want to lose sight of what is unique about the northwest corner in trying to spread where we can the elements around so that there's opportunities to experience the park in all areas. But I thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I think in the end we have an opportunity to touch a lot of spots in the park. Yes, sir.
System, and I'll come right out and say, I hope not.
Chris might be able to answer this one better, but the question is, with any of the improvements, specifically picnic tables, maybe in a shade structure, with those being a reservation system. Currently, none are, but I'll let you.
yeah, no, we do not have any way of making preferred reservations to anybody across the entire park system.
So,
The recreation centers are a little bit different because they have a higher volume of use, connected to the track, indoors, those other things with the parks. It's first come first.
great, yeah, I just wanted to make sure there was no,
Right.
yeah, I wanted to make sure there was no exclusivity, and there's so many people.
Yeah.
They were-
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And I'll come back over here. Yes, ma'am.
I apologize for being about 15 minutes late, but, I didn't hear anything concerning, having dogs in the park. And I thought that we were all going to share this park in some way, the neighborhood park. And we all pay our taxes and just like everybody else. And, I thought it would be more of a share thing, like, like people with the dogs that run around, stuff like that, they know the kids are out there playing from the rec center, and they come out and play
Yeah.
volleyball,
Yeah.
kickball and all these kind of things, but they usually don't go out in the evening. When the dogs are usually out there.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question is about the dogs and the how is that going to be managed? Because the park's for everyone. And so at this time, policy for dogs are it's an on-leash park, right? Denver parks are on leash. So there is a little bit of, I guess, a new,
Right now, there's policy for.
well, Denver, dogs are to be on leash. So in recognizing that, and hearing from the community through the previous meeting, there's a lot of interest for what could be a dog park or some dog run. And as we mentioned earlier on in the presentation that for instance, this area 12, could be, this is the northern area by Ellsworth in between here, or in between Hirschfeld and Dailey, that there might be an opportunity in the future. There's a pilot program that is out there that potentially a dog run could be a feature there, which would help maybe address some of that issue, but I know it's not going to solve it. So a lot of it is about probably the park going through some improvements is going to change some patterns for a little bit. So maybe that'll help reconcile some of the off-leash use, but it is something that we can't solve in the design process, but it is something that we definitely recognized and it's been shared. Chris, anything else you want to add on that one?
Yeah, sure. The other part is our rangers program. We have rangers in every aspect of the city, and the rangers are there to help kind of enforce the policy and make sure that people are safe and following the rules. And so we anticipate that, in future summers, that the rangers are going to continue to come to each park, this one including, and help make sure that all the rules are being met and everybody's safe. So there's some user.
Skateboarding, riding bikes, and
Yeah, all
things like
rules,
that.
man.
Yeah,
All rules,
absolutely.
not just,
So,
Yeah,
Right now.
oh, yeah, absolutely.
open truck.
well, yeah, so, yeah,
But that too.
You're only
Yeah.
enforcing one law right now.
so the question is, there's multiple things that are probably, well, not allowed in public that happen, and it is tough. I mean, the rangers are stretched, but we definitely have heard a lot of the input about the different activities going on. There's a lot of existing activities here that hopefully. All right, fair enough. Yep. So some of having activity come back to the park in terms of the improvements will shake things up, likely it typically does. But those patterns do kind of find their way back. So it will take some work to stay vigilant on that. And that's what the neighbors need to keep an eye on too and try to help. I know it's not easy, but yeah. We'll come back to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just had a question about the track production.
Yes.
What would that?
Yeah, great question. Great question. We're so, oh, yeah. Good point. So with turf reduction, what would the turf be replaced with? And I want to just make it clear, the core lawn area is not an area that we're looking to reduce turf. It's kind of in the margin areas where it's, I guess, what we kind of characterize as non-essential turf. You need those core gathering areas, especially because of the programming. I'll come back to you, but so what we would look at is, say, for instance, in an area like this might be an opportunity to bring shrubs, grasses, that idea of pollinator space in there, or we'd be looking at some areas like we're showing up in number 12 here, where that might be native seed that we'd work on establishing so that become more native and basically try to establish that so we get to a point where there's no need to irrigate that. That would be the goal. So we'll evaluate that as we're moving through the program, our process. There's a lot of variables that we have to look at, but where we find opportunities, and especially after we assess the full irrigation system, there may be some areas that arise as maybe a low performance area that we may need to take more serious look at. Sir, did you have and I'll come back over here.
Number one, use potable water to water the grass. Why can't you have a downtime
would be very expensive. It would help, parents, it would help kids, and help those people that we don't want to talk about, the unhoused people who have nowhere to go and do hang out in the park legally during the day. Okay. Number two, a restroom of some type. I know the restrooms we have in there are two, they can't really, some type of attractive porta potty. Parents, kids, neighbors using the park, and again, the unhoused people. So why do we worry about the unhoused people? Well, for lots of reasons. For one reason is it would stop people from putting in people's alleys and people's yards. There's a porta potty there, it might help. Number three, dogs. If you look at the park now, it's in really sad shape. And as dog lovers, I've got to say, gotta admit, it's the dog. Building park out. So if we spend $1.4 million in the park, and it's just a beautiful plan. Everything we show is just beautiful. But if we don't address the dogs, like have a small dog park, a small dog run, a dog run by city standards, 10th minute. The park is 2.7. But if we don't have a place for dogs to run, they're going to be running anyhow, everywhere. And it's after you spend $1.4 million in like spring of 2025, the grass is going to look like it does now. So,
Well, good. Thank you for the question. So the question was water fountain, because we have water, and we're using for irrigation. 2, restroom, and 3, the impact of dogs in the park. So Chris, do you want to touch on the water and restroom? Do you mind?
Yeah, sure. First off, the water fountain, I think, is a great idea. I don't think that would be something that would be a huge, deficit to the budget. And I think we should put it on the shopping list. The restrooms, I don't know the current plan for this part, but I think that we should look at it and consider it with the maintenance superintendent for the district and find out where a temporary facility can be located. A big question amongst our design team is what's going to happen to the existing shelters that are there. They've been locked up for 10 years. We know that they're not historical. We could potentially remove them at a cost that we don't currently have in our budget. So that's something that I'm dealing with, and I'm trying to speak with my senior management about to figure out, what should we do? Is there any way to potentially repurpose the spaces? We know that the rec center, for example, doesn't need them for storage. That was an idea way back when. So we're still open to ideas, whether there's, another idea has been to potentially demo them and then use the materials for something else, like maybe as an inlay in the plaza corner, something like that. So that's a technical question that we're still trying to address. The third one about the dog park. So, we're still trying to assess, like from a regional standpoint, neighborhood by neighborhood, what works here. We know that the biggest problem with our park, this park, Dailey Park, is that it's overloved. There's so many people, and there's so many people, including dogs, that it's the management of how people use it that is something that, as a neighborhood, we need to try to figure out. And between the rangers and our neighborhood district folks, we're trying to get everybody on board to use it so that it can be equitably, survive.
Yeah, but you said regionally, so is there within walking distance plans for a significant dog?
There's multiple.
So and that might be just communicate good, that's what,
Yeah.
but talk to the rangers.
Right. Yeah, and to your point about 1/10 of an acre, so the space that we have earmarked as a future potential dog space, so that's about a little less than 8,000 square feet. So quite a bit larger, it's more like a 1/5 of an acre. We think it would be great, but it's all a matter of funding. Right now, there's funding for future dog parks in the next 2 years, but that's not included for this park. So we're going to keep listening. We're going to keep trying to assess where we can make, these needs met through the region and through the neighborhood. Just so to the point, a project that's actually under construction right now that I'm working on is over at Sanderson Gulch, which is it's north of Ruby Hill. And we're building about a 12,000 square foot dog park there. So I know it's not necessarily in this neighborhood, but it is coming. There's a second facility that's being looked at the Sunken Gardens. And I'm not 100% where that is today, but we're looking at every possible location, neighborhood by neighborhood, because this problem is coming up across the city. You know, it's been a 20% rise in population in the last 10 years to, I don't even know what the numbers are for numbers of dogs that have increased, but there's a lot more for sure.
We're gonna, well, we'll come back to you. We're gonna go, we'll take your question because you had your hand up before, and then we're gonna do a couple online questions, but go ahead.
The comment a question I have, or maybe a comment. I know you said you're planting trees and, you know, making a forest and all this stuff. What are you gonna do about the trees that are there now? They're getting so old. And I know there's only like 3 tree people in the whole city county to do things, but we have one tree over here on the corner of Ellsworth and Cherokee that have lost a couple of very big limbs. They fall off. And sometimes it takes 3 or 4 days for we go pick it up and you'll saw it off. And then we lost some pine tree limbs over here. And another bush over here that may have been ruined by people, but you know, that's kind of maybe off the limit, but it's kind of a safety thing too. So I don't know if we're gonna have somebody regularly, how we can figure out to save our trees. I mean, we're losing our canopy altogether.
So,
But all these trees are 50, 60 years
Yep.
old, you know.
So the question was about the existing trees, the health of the existing trees, and some of the branches and pieces that have fallen. We unfortunately we always get these wonderful, really wet snows or other events that don't help any of the Denver trees, and that is unfortunate consequence here. But I know the forestry team does their best to try to get around because they have a lot of territory to cover. But one of the things we've done, Chris was out with the forestry team, you know, looking, and most of our design work so far has been in the winter. So we don't have the green part of the trees out yet, but we will do a swing through when we have the plan further developed, so we can walk through and talk about areas of the improvements that we're looking at to assess how those interact with the existing trees and get a read on the trees that are in the park. At this point, there's not any indication for forestry to remove any trees. They would be all preserved. And then, as mentioned, we have some new trees out there that we'll have to figure out how we reconcile those. We're going to jump to, so hopefully that answers you. We could talk a little bit more about that too, right? Patrick, any questions that we want to hit here, or do you want to promote people?
Yeah, so these are both from Eric, and they're more comments than questions. But Eric is asking, oh, we just got another. Eric's asking or saying, he says, I think a good point from the last meeting is that people will be bringing dogs to the park and letting them off leash regardless. So it would be nice to see how we can prioritize dog runs sooner than later. And his second point is also there's always the same vans, trucks, and RVs around the park for days.
Yeah, we heard that early in the last meeting too. So it definitely something we've documented and commented on. What's next?
So from Angela, having young kids in the neighborhood, I love the options presented. I'm anti-dog run. I like the openness of the park and that being maintained. I love the options for a younger and older kid area. Is there any budget for a splash pad or consider adding things like an alphabet garden or letters, numbers into the design?
Great suggestion. Yeah. We on the splash pad at this time, that's not in our, I guess, a collection of budget items that we could integrate into the park at this time, but it's a great suggestion and something that we can keep in mind as recommendations for the future. But love the idea about bringing some of the educational elements in it. There's great opportunity for interpretive features too. Okay.
In addition to that, the park is used a lot by the library, schools, and kids. Also, are there thoughts of a bike repair system?
That's a great suggestion. There are small bike stands and repair features that we've integrated into parks in the past. So good suggestion. Thank you. Oh, go ahead. We'll do.
I just have a question. If you wanted through our neighborhood association to raise money to aid y'all, could you give us like, how much extra would it cost for a dog run? Like, if we all pitched in $100, like all of us dog owners, like, could we do it? Like splash pad, like how much, like, and is there a, it seems to me there is a mechanism for individuals to contribute to parks.
Yeah.
So it would be awesome to have that information, because I know a number of us would be willing to engage in that.
I'll give you my information.
Okay,
Try to.
sure.
So just to make sure everyone heard that, and I think since you're close, hopefully they did. But the question was about the neighborhood generating funds for potential improvements in the park that could be self-funded by the neighborhood. And Chris is going to talk further about that and provide information. I know personally we're helping Denver Parks on a project that has funds that were self-raised by neighbors up near 9th in Colorado to do a new pavilion there. So so there are examples out there. Great question. I don't know how to answer that one.
You don't have to. That was rhetorical. Putting me on the spot, man.
Kinda. Go ahead, sir. Yeah, tied for a big user. Yeah, tied.
No, I think it's a great point. So currently our budget is being driven by the bond funding. That's kind of the exclusive amount of dollars that we have. And it's my job to monitor the neighbors' inclinations and what they think is necessary. So if it comes to a point where I need to go to my management team to say, hey, this is an integral part to solving the social issues of this park, then that's what I need to hear from the neighborhood. If we need to add dollars, it's a possibility. Today, it's not part of our funding, but it's where we're at. Yeah, sorry, the question was whether or not we would be able to build the dog park under the current plans with the current funding that we have.
So I want to take the opportunity to break and look at the board. Oh, you have two more? Okay. Well, we're going to tee you up. Rachel, Brian, can you pull dots and get us ready over there and have the Post-its ready to go? But we're going to break and allow us to continue this discussion. So you can ask us questions directly. You can write down different questions so that we can document it and put it on the plans. Help us just share your thoughts on what is exciting, what you think is representative for the community and be impactful for you as a Dailey Park user. So we'll go to these two questions, then we'll break, and we'll be available to answer questions directly too.
Shannon would like to know if the design plans are one or the other, or if there's room to add elements to either or both plans.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, we are open to suggestions, and the idea of what elements from each plan can always evolve and become elements to become a preferred plan. So we want to hear what you think makes an impact for Dailey Park. So I'll just note again, like I said earlier, there are trade-offs, because if we move to focusing on a shade structure, we may have to reduce the seating area or the gathering area to manage the budget that we have available to us for right at this moment.
And Angela would like to follow up with the conversation about neighbors giving dollars. And she's wondering if there's a way to integrate neighborhood businesses and gather their support or sponsorship.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that would be one, I think through our follow-up, that Chris can provide some information on how the neighborhood and businesses could get involved.
Yeah, I think that, as we gear up towards the third reading, which will be in the next, let's say, couple of months, that I'll have some more specific information for the group about how that can be established and what those funds can be used for. And then we can kind of go from there.
All right, so we'll break in person and we'll go back here. You can answer direct questions. Rachel will set you up with some material to provide your input. And we want to thank everyone for your time tonight to come out on a rainy evening. We love rain in Denver, but thank you so much for listening to us and letting us share where we are and appreciate the progress that we've been able to make because of the input that everyone here has given their time and the folks online. And so everyone online, if you want to hang on there, Patrick will be on there. He's going to turn on his microphone and you all can interact directly and provide direct input. He can mark up plans on the fly and put some notes and get your input. So thanks to everyone online too for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Good job, Chase.
Thank you.
Thank you.